Challenge your potential and the sky's the limit. Join me, Emily Ibbott, in a diary to empower. From a starting point of a love for dance, my life has evolved, but along the way, I've learned so much in how we develop, learn and grow from those around us to elevate us even further on. Be inspired and be open to learn, and no limit will ever exist. Come along with me on my own journey in personal development, but with guests who have empowered me and are still doing so in my own journey. Hello and welcome back. Today I have the lovely SHAK with me.
Hiya.
And we are gonna cover quite a bit today, just around injuries and bodybuilding, injuries and training. So it kind of doesn't have to necessarily target the competitive people out there. But yeah, so I'll introduce you to start with. So I've known SHAK, well, I was looking on my videos the other day, it came up on my timeline. Must be 6+ years.
It has not been that
I started in Pure Gym in Camberley. SHAK is still there.
Yeah.
And we're having a great time. We reminisced, didn't we? Because nothing's changed from the video that I saw the other day.
Everything's exactly the way we left it and probably just as dusty.
A great time. And I think as well, like that was when I didn't take, well, training wasn't as serious as I do now, but it's where it all began. And so to start with the whole injuries side of things, I think this will reach out to maybe some of you guys. And I think, well, along anyone's training journey, there are always niggles that come up. There are always injuries that happen. There are also accidents that happen and long-term stuff that can sort of come to surface, so to speak. Now, SHAK is no better person to speak about this topic from a lot of your own experience.
I think I've had basically everything under the sun at this point.
Every time I meet up with SHAK, it's like, oh, there's more.
Yeah, there's always something new, whether it's something broken, something niggling, something medically needing pills or something like that. There's always something to work around. And
it hasn't stopped you?
No.
At all?
It's really tried. It's tested my patience, but it's still pushing.
Yeah, and you've always you're big into your training.
Yeah.
Like you take it so seriously, and like you almost compete. You've thought about.
I was looking to, and then the whole of the last 18 months, everything spiraled massively out of control between stomach issues, digestion, skin flare-ups, needing to be on immunosuppressants, tendon rupture, joint issues. It's all just. Yeah.
And you need them to compete. A lot of those.
Skin's pretty important.
And also even the digestive side of things as well. Like you need everything to function because you're
deep into a prep.
Because your body's going to stop functioning. So we don't want it to stop that even more. And would you still get on the stage?
I would still love to. The issue I have now is that it's been so long that I've been dealing with issues that I've almost aged into the masters category for some feds, which is terrifying to say out loud. It makes it very real that I'm 35.
And it always varies. Like some of the masters categories, there are so many different ones. So I reckon you still should.
We'll see.
And obviously you spoke to me yesterday about obviously you've relearnt to walk a couple of times.
Yeah, I had a major accident at the age of 18 that left me on crutches for about 18 months. I ended up having to have an arthroscopy and scooping almost the entirety of my right knee out, having to relearn to walk. They let me walk on it for a good 10 months prior to that, saying there was nothing wrong. And then I came in, they were like, that shouldn't be like round there. My kneecap was round the side. And they said, look, you may never walk again. And that was a very, very real thing for me at sort of 18, 19, at that time where I was at university.
Well, do you think your entire life is ahead of you?
I was based around sport. I was playing American football, I was playing rugby, I was playing football. I'd just stopped playing cricket. I'd still did martial arts, I'd still done gymnastic stuff, I was still breakdancing and free running, and suddenly to be told you'll never walk again was a very, very real, oh my God kind of moment. I was like, whoa, where do I go from here?
And was that when you were doing gymnastics really competitively as well?
No, that was when I was young. I had a number of injuries then as well. That's you bounce back as a kid. You can throw them at the floor and they'll bounce back up completely fine, like nothing's happened.
And no fear as well. Now I've got all the fear.
It is a very learned thing.
And it doesn't like no, how do I go with this? It doesn't define you. And also sometimes people will say that, the doctors will say that, like, and it doesn't necessarily have to stop you.
It doesn't have to end there. So I was told, even though I'd never walk again, I was adamant that that wasn't going to be the end of my journey. And there are times where a doctor will tell you, yeah, this is the case, and there is no arguing with it. But you should still make your best attempt, because it is, at their point, it's a best guess on their part from cases they've seen.
Because they don't know, because they've never had an individual like you. No one's the same.
It's suspected, and the way you react to things can play a big part in how your recovery goes, whether you are going to throw the towel in straight away or whether you're going to go, cool, I'll accept that and take a back seat. And sometimes you need to take a back seat, and sometimes you need to go, I'm not having that, you need to push a little bit.
And I think, like, everyone knows their own body.
Yeah.
And equally, on the flip side of that, I think so many people get told things like that and they're like, oh, that's me out.
Yeah.
And it's not. Like, you can still move. And all it is just that tiny bit where we have to reassess, like, the current training that you're doing. Obviously, for most people out there who listen to this pod, I presume train, from what I've heard from people messaging me. And there might be some of you that don't and just find, obviously, these topics really interesting as well. But it can come, you don't have to necessarily, we're talking about the gym and training and obviously injuries with that, but equally, it doesn't have to be gym training. It can be swimming. It can be obviously anything, even just going out for walks all the time. You still might have to battle some things that come along the way. And we always deal with, like, twisted ankles and things like that. You don't know what can then erupt from that, because I've had many clients who have just gone over on their ankle and then down the line, it's just evolved a little bit.
This is the thing, you work in the same sort of niche that I do, in the sense that you're going to have gen pop as well. So day-to-day people are going to hurt themselves, not even in the gym. You might just kind of get out of a chair slightly funny or wake up slightly funny. And then it's, what do you do about that?
Yeah.
Because if you were planning to train, you've still got to work around it. And day-to-day, even if you're not someone that trains, you've got to learn what I can do, what I can't do. Is this something worth seeing? Can I work through this kind of thing?
Yeah, hugely. And I think, with especially around injuries, it's how I sort of fell in love a little bit more with the gym because of my dancing. I wanted to feel stronger. I had so many classmates and things who would always go over an ankle, or they'd have shin splints, or their shoulder would feel funny. And I wanted to feel so much stronger and not have any of those little niggles for the most part of what I can help. Obviously, accidents happen. You can't help that. Things do crop up. But, if we can make ourselves feel stronger and build everything around those joints to make them a little bit happier, then it makes all the difference. Hugely. And I guess, obviously, I've had client experiences with ruptured Achilles and knee problems. And what about you?
I've had some clients. I've recently had a girl called Sonia who has had in a sense, she's had a nightmare sort of 24 months, but she's also had a fantastic sort of 24 months, because she had this freak rugby accident. She was running, planted her foot, not even in play, planted her foot, twisted the foot slightly. And she said to me, the next thing she knew, she was on the floor. And she ruptured her ACL, her MCL, her PCL, her LCL. So every ligament in her knee, basically. And tore her patella tendon. And she's currently on her she's due her fourth surgery next month, as soon as her doctor clears that.
Yeah.
But she still turns up, and she was told, look, you may not be able to use the knee again, you may not be able to run, you may not be able to play sport ever again. And we've been kicking the can down the road. She had a couple of accidents, a couple of drunken mishaps that have made things slightly worse. Slipping into a pool would be one of them. But at the end of the day, she still turned up. She hit a PB on her deadlift. We pulled 120 from the floor, which was a big thing for someone who came in. She couldn't really bend over or support any weight on the legs. So to come in and go, cool, I'm not going to let this stop me. She went this morning to the gym as well and texted me, was like, I've done it. Single leg press, which is a huge thing for someone that can't move the knee. I was like, wow.
Oh, it's what you need the knee for that.
Yeah. So you get people that will be almost, you said you shouldn't be defined by an injury, but it builds the character.
Yeah.
And it can redefine you.
Yes.
I guess, is a way to look at it. It's just another way to find out what you're really made of.
And also, it's always thinking about what you can do rather than what you can't do. Probably the same in your own experiences, because you've only recently just started back on leg days.
Yeah.
Is this for knee? What is, was it knee?
So I had an incident last summer as soon as the new gym opened, and I squatted down, and as I stood up, my knee popped. And I'm at an age now where I have what I thought I had a good knee and a bad knee, and now I just have a left and a right knee again.
They're the same.
And it was at the time my good knee, and this swelling stopped me walking. I couldn't bend my knee, I couldn't straighten it, I couldn't put any weight on it. I thought that's weird, and it got progressively worse. And I was told, look, you've got a Baker's cyst. You're lucky because it's just missed all your ligaments. The swelling's there, but you haven't damaged anything aside from that. So just stay off legs for another 6 to 8 weeks, which as a PT is a nightmare because you need to demonstrate exercise, you need to move
We
about.
need our legs.
Yeah,
We
we
love
need
legs.
everything.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do need everything. It's a bit difficult.
Yeah.
And especially to explain something. Like I find I have the weirdest analogies with my team, and unless I can demonstrate it, they're then like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, it makes sense when you see it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's tough hearing that, and also being like a heavy gym like goer. Like as much as I dislike leg days, we love them really. So, and especially you yourself love leg days.
I adore a leg day, even if it does not adore me back.
Yeah. So what was your first point of call? Was it just, okay, I just need to rest this and then just...
So my first thing was I went and called the doctor and I was like, I need an appointment, I need a scan. And I really thought about going to A&E about it because it got to a point where I live on the 3rd floor of an apartment building with no lift. So I couldn't
Not
get
ideal.
up and I certainly couldn't come down. And the whole next day after it happened, I woke up, I was like, I actually can't get out of bed. And I suddenly had flashbacks to being like 18, 19 and going, this again. But on the other side. I then tried to call the doctor. Doctor said, look, we'll make an appointment for you. 6 weeks later. So I said, I'm not having that. I went and got an ultrasound for the next day, out of pocket from the paid privately. Got my results 2 days later, and I was told, look, here's this. It was worth getting it seen to. I would have dreaded having to wait 6 weeks to find out that I shouldn't be walking on it, because I would have carried on. As most people I know, if you do something bad and you go, it hurts a little bit, but I can deal with it.
I think we all do that.
Yeah.
We're all a little bit guilty. And if you have like a tiny niggle, you're like, it should go by next
It's
session.
bad because as PTs, we're very much do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. Don't, to all my team out there.
Yeah, to mine too. Just do what I say. Never ever what I do. Do what I say.
And it's hard because we like, well, you know, we've had that as well. And I remember thinking, and it's not until that my coach says to me, no, stop, that I will stop.
It's pretty hard to argue with John. He's a big man.
It is, it's scary. And the problem is his thing, and he's always said to me, again, you know your own body. Similar to if you're ill, like, you know, if you're so ill to the point that you should not do anything and you need to rest, to, okay, I'm just might be being a bit lazy. I can push through this a little bit. Because I've had ones like that and I've had the best session ever. Equally, like, if you are ill, like, let your body be ill because you're only going to get back to your session sooner. And it's the same with resting and anything that you've done or something hurts. Hopefully it's only temporary, and it will be temporary. You know, so long you follow whether the doctors or physios or whatever, anything along those lines. But you've got to almost let that time pass and understand that you can't always push through.
Yeah, playing devil advocate on that, because I'm sure you've seen it in sessions with clients where some clients have gone, oh, that hurts a little bit, and you go, just stop, we'll do something else. And they really force it. No, I can do it. And as the coach, you're like, this probably isn't the smartest move and it will lead to more injury.
Yeah.
So sometimes knowing your own limits, you've got to really, really be confident in where you're going with things. Otherwise, you're going to cause yourself more damage down the line.
Yeah, and you don't want to do that. And it's better. I had, oh my gosh, when was it? A good few weeks ago now, must be like 8 weeks ago, that I had pains in both my knees. And I was like, something's not quite right. Realizing it was my quads that were so tight, it was putting so much pressure on my knees. Booked a sports massage, cried because it was so painful on my quads, which we'll talk about a little bit of our recovery later on in the pod. But I now haven't had any knee pain since, but John said, right, 2 weeks, no training legs. You are not allowed to train legs. And I was like, now it's taken away from me. I want to do it, even though most of the time I complain about doing legs. So you've just got to let your body be a little bit.
Yeah, one step back for 2 steps forward. Basically.
Yeah, and it took me a good few weeks to then bring back my numbers, but now they're flying again. So it's like, it is only temporary.
It's a hard thing to reason with anyone, though, because if you tell someone that feels they're in the peak of their athleticism, sort of like their behaviour, your lifts are going well, you're training well, you're eating well, you're sleeping well, you get a little niggle. Do I work around it? Do I not? You push through, it gets slightly worse, and it gets slightly worse, and it gets slightly worse. Suddenly you have to pull everything back.
Yeah.
And if you just address that early on and gone, I'm either seeing someone about it, or I'm going to stop doing that, or I'm going to figure out why this movement doesn't fit.
Yeah.
You'd be...
It's better to pull back a little bit than
yeah.
end just ripping everything off. Because we still like moving. And yeah, I think that's obviously such a big thing to highlight. I have 2 clients who both had operations on their knees. Well, one on the knee, one on the ankle on Friday. And I know it's really hard. Like, and they're like, I'm scared. Like, I'm going to be in a cast for this long. And it's like, just breathe for a minute, because you have only just come out of an operation. Like, give yourself some time. Like, you will still be able to do some things, even if like you're in a brace or, you know, a cast or anything like that. There is still quite a bit you can do. And again, she won't mind me mentioning Dawn, when she came in.
Inspirational.
I saw her this morning, actually. And how do you explain her injury? She had it was her knee, wasn't it?
Well, she had a full break.
And she was in like, she could not move her leg. And she was in training. That was when I just started in Pure.
That was the thing. She did the smart thing of, I can't do this, but I'm going to do what I can.
Yeah. So she did everything upper. Her upper's hench.
Yeah.
Dawn is strong as. And like, there is still so much that you can control, even if it might feel like you've got niggles absolutely everywhere and you feel a little bit broken. Just back off things, you know, take it easy. Like, don't be stupid.
This is the other thing. So, like, some people will square peg round hole kind of things and say, oh, you have to squat, you have to do this, and you have to do that. And sometimes those movements just don't fit for you. I still meet PTs day to day who are like, clients have to barbell back squat. They have to do this. But if you've got someone that has a history of low back issues or poor shoulder mobility, you're going to cause an injury down the line. I always look at it like, you think of like a rope, a long, thick, cabled rope. And while there may not be a problem initially, you're just fraying away at the rope. And while there's no problem on the day, if you keep forcing it and forcing it and forcing it, that rope's going to snap eventually.
Yeah.
And then you'll go, this is why that's happened.
Yeah. And you don't want anything major to happen. And you don't always have to do all the exercises. No. Like,
except if they're in your program.
Okay, yes, no program. But like, your coach will not program anything that is out of your reach. And if there is something wrong, tell them. Yeah. Like, if something's niggling, you have to communicate with them as well.
That's why so many coaches are so hot on video feedback, so you can see what looks right, what looks wrong, and to limit the risk of injury.
Yeah. And it's all well and good. Like, I don't know, you've probably had it if like a client feedback, how's your sessions? Yeah, they're good. We need detail, because it's going to give us the most possible feedback to give to you to adapt your program later down the line, to understand how your body's actually functioning and moving for those sessions. Like, you want your body to excel, not kind of just go along with the motions.
You do the big lifts and you don't do the accessories and wonder why you get hurt.
Also, take note. Yeah. Accessory work is necessary. We need it.
As much as we hate Bulgarian split squats.
Yeah. Or lunges. Yeah. Every time I have lunges with my clients, they're like, I'm like, trust me, they're great.
You can see the soul leave the body just as soon as you mention it.
Yeah, it's no fun. And we hate them too, but we still have to do them because they're great exercises.
It's a love-hate kind of
thing. Yeah.
It's a necessary evil.
And obviously, I guess that kind of brings on to, and I spoke about me crying in a sports massage, recovery.
Yeah.
We need it. Your body needs it. Even more so if you're injured. We need it. I think so many people, I don't know whether you've said to me, when people are like, oh yeah, I train 6-7 times a week. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Why?
I'd be lost without my rest days. And I think as well, like, you want to get your rest day and feel like you need it, like you're ready for it. Like, your body should be like, okay, yeah, we're pretty knackered. Just give us a bit of rest. And obviously recovering sleep is a majorly important one. If you're not sleeping, your body isn't going to do nothing.
It's the most overlooked bit of recovery people have, sleeping and eating enough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the biggest one. And obviously, if you have injuries or niggles, don't entirely ignore them, like we said earlier, because it's only going to get worse. But there are obviously things you can do. And there are things also, which we said yesterday, that are also out of our scope that we can't always fix or
That's exactly what I
know.
was about to say. I was like, if you do have niggles injuries, don't ask your PT.
Yeah,
Go ask your doctor. Go ask your physio, because stay within your
we're not
wheelhouse.
specialists.
I'm not asking my accountant about my teeth. I'm not asking my lawyer about, doing my accounts. We know what we need to do.
Yeah, and obviously there are things that we can guide on, and things that we can people we can refer out to, because I certainly don't know the details of things like that. Again, we can do our own research and have some knowledge about it, especially if it's our own experience. But again, we do not know. Now, both you and I, we'll shout him out, Sabin.
Yeah,
SMG therapy. He is incredible. We we both had one, was it last week?
Yeah.
Or the week before, and we came out with matching bruises.
All the way
This
down
was
the
in
back.
like a week apart from each other. And I think sports massages are hugely overlooked. I know I need to have them way more often than I do. And you don't want to be tight. If the tighter your body is, the more restrictive movements are going to be. The performance in your training is not going to be the same. Like, take notes. And I don't know whether you found that, like...
I have the opposite end of the spectrum problem. So equally, a tight muscle is something that doesn't work too well, but I am also hypermobile.
Shaq is the bendiest person.
So my joints will dislocate if I go too far. If I don't think about what I'm doing when I'm pressing, for example, I can dislocate an elbow. I can manually pop a finger out like that and then back in and just fold back. But yeah, you get the same reaction everywhere. The whole elbow just goes out like that. Anyway, on that note, if you're too loose, you create a different kind of problem.
Yeah.
So the lack of tension in the system creates this whole risk of tearing. So you kind of get this whole, I'm too loose, I've overstretched this, and you'll just pull something else.
Yeah. And it's being aware of that in training. Like, I had a client who was extremely hypermobile, and she was terrified when like her first session with me. She was so scared. I was like, let's just be more in tune with your body. You've got to know what it's doing in training. Like, don't just like go willy-nilly in training and just press whatever and rep whatever and not think about what you're doing, because you need to be able to control the muscles that you're flipping working. And it's going to make such a difference.
Yeah.
Because again, you're going to be less likely to injure yourself too.
Anyone can throw a weight from A to B, but to move it with purpose with the right thing is a real cultivated kind of art.
And I guess that's why we love our jobs, because, and you see people like repping out all the time, and they're like, whoa, slow down, like, understand what you're doing. And again, like I said with Morgan, and we spoke about a lot about mind to muscle connection, especially in line with posing. And it's like, you've got to be in tune with that in training.
Yeah. I mean, to the clients, it probably seems like we're just being a professional bully, but we're trying to look out for your best interest by making sure you don't just rupture something or throw something out. And it's for the sake of their longevity. So if you can't train a week, 2 weeks, a couple of years down the line from now, what's the point? It's all well and good if I can get you to do something for 5 seconds, but if it's going to cause you to have problems for the next couple of years, I'd rather not.
Yeah, hugely. And also, like, we could go into any session and absolutely, like, annihilate someone. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can put...
Anyone can make anyone tired. It takes a real skill to make someone better.
Yeah, hugely. And that's why these things take time. And to understand your own body, and with injuries, the more you're aware you are of yourself, the more in tune. If you have a niggle, you're going to know what to do about it, and have a bit more faith in yourself as well. Like, when I went to Sabin for my back, I was like, I just know, like, I should probably go about my back. My quads were more of an alert to be like, you need to get them seen to.
Your quads were bad.
Well, they were so bad. They were just so tight. And I think it's not until that everything's kind of loosened off that your like performance as well is so much better. Blood flow, like connection, actually understanding it. Because especially for people in office jobs, I have so many clients that are just like all up here. And it's like you realise, especially understanding the control of your shoulders.
Why they have so many headaches, why their neck hurts so much, why their shoulders hurt so much, why their elbows hurt so much. Because you spend all day sat in this kind of hunched position with either a phone or a keyboard or mouse in hand.
Yeah.
And you don't move.
That and glutes being tight is probably one of the...
It's not even tight, they're just underactive. Just sit on them all day, they don't get to squeeze
just so
all.
dormant.
Yeah.
It's like, fire them up. I know so many people that are either quad dominant or hamstring dominant. They're like, I don't know what my glutes are.
They're nothing dominant. They may as well be in a wheelchair in some cases. They don't move.
Yeah. And it's being aware to fire them up. Like, and like, especially the recovery, like sports massages do hurt. Like, they're supposed to actually...
Yeah, they're supposed to get to the real heart of the tissue. If they don't hurt, you're either not tight or you've just got a very, very gentle sports masseuse who's like, I don't want to hurt you.
Yeah.
Whereas Sabin is not like that.
No,
Sabin
I've
is
got
like,
clients that are
hurt me more.
scared of him now after seeing my videos.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but it's so worth it, guys.
You feel so, well, not straight afterwards. The day afterwards, you feel a bit broken.
Yeah.
But
day after that's fine.
yeah, you feel fantastic. You train, you're like, I can feel this thing that I've never felt before, or I've moved in a way I don't feel pain anymore. So it's a really important thing to do.
And obviously, aside from that, how do you focus on recovery between sessions? Like, how do you know, I guess this is a good time to put in a deload? But a lot of people don't know what they are.
Yeah.
So how would you sort of go about explaining what a deload is?
So I used to program and deload every 4 weeks of a training block, and I've kind of moved away from that because it kind of says, look, I'm going to beat you up to a point you need it, and then we'll pull back.
Yeah.
And you lose a week. So over the course of a year, you lose 12 weeks to deloading. Wow. A deload would be a case where you either decrease the loading or the total reps in a session of an exercise to kind of allow a bit of what they used to call supercompensation. But really, at this point, I would say, look, if you're feeling beat up, pull back a bit, be sensible.
Yeah. I know John's always been like, you know, half the reps, and that point where you start feeling it burning, just stop. It is weird. No one likes deloads, but they're there for a purpose. And it's, again, essentially for your body to recover so that you can carry on pushing afterwards, because you don't want to get to a point where your body is forced to rest because it feels absolutely everything. Like your body should know when to kind of pull back. And I've always, well, since being with John, I've always taken deloads as, okay, go in, move. You're not going to move loads. You're going to get a little bit of a pump, but that's pretty much it. And they can be pretty boring, but it is worth it.
They can be a very necessary evil, that's the thing.
Yeah.
They're just there to kind of get some inflammation cleared from the tissue. So if you find something is really inflamed, like your quads, for example, getting some movement, because movement is still medicine at the end of the day, getting some movement, some blood flow to the area to allow that transport of, you know, everything in and out to recover would be a good choice without beating yourself to hell.
Yeah, hugely. And as well, like with, I don't know whether you've ever had clients with DOMs. I mean, we've all experienced extremely bad DOMs, and I've not been able to walk for a week before.
They're like, oh no, we're doing walking lunges. Oh, my legs hurt. We can't do lunges. Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah.
We've all had DOMs.
Yeah. And I think if we didn't do a workout the next day because I had DOMs, I don't think
We'd never get anything done.
Do many workouts in the year. And there is a lot you can still do. Yes, obviously there are more extreme times when you've had a little break or you've been on holiday that you do that first session back. Yes, it's going to be a little bit more of a shock to the system. Yeah. But there is still a lot that you can do. I remember on prep, I think I was quite deep into prep, or I did a session with John or something, and it was a leg day. It's been a while since I've done one of those, and I had to get on the Stairmaster the next day. I had no choice, and the DOMs were horrendous. I could barely walk. You got to do it. Obviously, again, that is an extreme version of it, but don't stop everything. If something's hurting, like keep moving, keep walking. It might be a rest day anyway the next day, but you know, just like keep that recovery, because again, it's going to come into it.
It's a hard thing convincing, especially like new clients. If you've done anything like a bodyweight squat and they've been inactive for a year, 2 years, whatever it is, and they go, I can't move, I'm stuck on the toilet kind of thing. They're kind of crippled. And you have to convince them, look, if you try squatting a few times, it'll help. And they're like, this is the thing that got me into this situation. How could that be any use? But convince them that if you keep moving, things will ease off is a very... It's a hard thing, because with DOMs especially, delayed onset muscle soreness, you're going to find that... Yeah,
I always forget that we always say DOMs, and then so many people are like, what?
What's DOMs?
Delayed onset muscle soreness, as SHAK just said.
There's varying levels of it. So if you never, ever, in a bodybuilding context, have DOMs in any muscle or a certain muscle training, if you never feel any DOMs, you can probably up the intensity you're training that with.
Yeah.
Either the reps you're using, the exercises, the volume... Number of things you can change. If you feel crippled by it, and this is a common thing I find with hamstrings with a lot of clients, because they don't need a lot of volume. If you're training and you're using, I don't know, like 4 sets of hamstrings in one exercise, let's say you're doing RDLs and then you're doing seated leg curls, then you're doing laying leg curls, and suddenly you're crippled for 8-9 days, your hamstrings hurt the whole week, peel it back. You shouldn't be sore for a prolonged period.
Yeah.
You should there's varying levels of DOMs that are acceptable.
Yeah.
It's kind of a baseline.
And on the occasion, you might have those times where, like, you've got DOMs for about a week or so.
Yeah.
But if you had that all the time, it is not going to be ideal. Yeah, hugely.
It's a sign you're doing either too much or you're under-recovered.
Yeah.
So...
Sleep. Yeah. And they do come hand in hand with
And hydration.
And hydration, need that. This is your sign to drink a glass of water. I always say that on check-ins, like whenever I highlight hydration, I'm like, oh, this is my sign as well. So drink a glass of water if you're listening to this right now.
It's like dehydrated houseplants. They just need it all.
Yeah. And yeah, with DOMs, they're like, they can be a sign. I know people who chase DOMs, like,
as an indicator of progress in their head, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't obviously want to use that too much. Like, it's not. There are so many things that we can look at for progression in so many different ways. And yeah, we all kind of like it when we're a little bit like stiff the next day, but
day after push when your chest is like, oh, I did work that. It's nice.
Yeah. And it's nice to know because you've like pushed that little bit of progression, but it's not the only way of progression that you can possibly push. So if you don't have DOMs, it's basically your body being like, okay, like we're in a good groove here. Like we're moving, which is also a good one.
This thing, you could be just recovering well. You could be recovering really, really well if you have no DOMs at all. But if you're never ever sore, maybe look at your training a little bit.
Yeah. And it's that gauge to like push up intensity because, you want to train hard and make the most of it. And I guess to come back, we've highlighted a lot on recovery, but coming back to those injuries side of things, how would you suggest to anyone out there, like who's got those little niggles or ignoring or, have had some major things and are just trying to get back into training again?
I mean, getting back into training, if you've had an injury and you need to get back into training, number one, I'm hoping you've seen a physio or a sports therapist, someone that will give you some kind of guided progression and work to do.
And a specialist as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I guess, you've probably had experience where the doctors...
musculoskeletal clinics and things like that.
Yeah. Or like you go to the doctors and they've not necessarily given you the specialist information that you actually need. Mm-hmm. Like, rack their brains a little bit. Like,
this is the problem. Like, modern doctors, with relation to exercise-related injuries, aren't the most competent, but your physios tend to be pretty good. So if you get a sports therapist, you get a physio, you get an osteopath. Like, I love seeing an osteopath every 4 to 6 months if I have no issues, but all more frequently if I do. Someone that's specialised in that will give you some kind of graded return to exercise that you should be doing. In the case of a client of mine called Ben, he had a very, very niche shoulder injury. We thought it was a torn pec initially, and then, because he couldn't lift his arm, we thought it was a torn pec initially. We sent him off. They said that he had type 2 impingement, and then they scanned him and said there was no impingement. And he ended up going to the MSK and they said, look, this is a case where we've only read about this in textbooks.
Crikey.
They called in like 4 or 5 people like, we've never seen this before. It's fantastic. Not so much for Ben.
For everyone else, it's really interesting. Yeah.
He was then encouraged to do a recovery protocol as we grade his return to exercise. And he's encouraged to carry on doing that almost indefinitely. So you may find that some things you have to do forever as a form of treatment. If you have some kind of postural misalignment like scoliosis, or if you have bum knees or a bad back, you may constantly need to do something because posture becomes habit, more or less. If you do something often enough, you're going to be stuck that way. So you need to start working to undo it consistently. If you're just coming back from a slight niggle, it's a different thing. Yeah. If you're coming back with a niggle, you kind of want to go, cool, what hurt this? Like, you probably know what hurt it. If it's like benching with your elbows flared out causes your shoulders to hurt, then obviously work on tucking, working on your movement, working on warm-ups.
And just like reanalyze, I guess, into the training, into more specifics. I guess that's sums things pretty darn well. And obviously, just from what my train of thought has absolutely just gone, from what you were just saying, in line when you go to a physio or when you go and you get that program, do the exercises that they tell you. I know so many people that are like, whatever. They're there for a reason. And obviously, if that's not then working, like if you're not doing something, you don't know that something's worked. Like, you're not, same as a PT session. You're not just going to come to a PT session and then, you're just
throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. You have no idea what's fixed you, or in the same way, you have no idea what's caused your problem. Yeah. Because usually the stuff that hurts in your rehab, it's probably the stuff you need to be doing. Yeah.
And also in line with us as coaches, we can work with that. And obviously the more information that we know from physio, osteopath, sports therapist, we can do so much in training, whether that be not to touch around those exercises or enhance or do some more of those exercises to encourage you to do it even more so throughout your week. So something to remember to include, like, we're here to help. We aren't the specialists. But yeah.
But we'll liaise with them.
Yes, hugely. We all kind of work together in our own little way.
I send all my clients, I send to the same osteopath. So I'm going to shout out Callum, because he hates probably the fact that I ask every single one of them to send me a voice note of things that he said, what to do, what not to do, what ranges of motion are safe, what are unsafe, exercises to avoid. Callum, I'm sorry, you probably hate it, but it's to my benefit and it's to their benefit, and it keeps them training longer and healthier.
Yeah, and that ultimately, with injuries and anything like that, is what you want to do. You want to increase the longevity of your training. You don't just want to stop.
Especially in bodybuilding, where the intensity is going to be right the way up the whole way. If you're off season, in season, an injury's a nightmare. So you want to make sure that you are mitigating things as soon as they pop up.
Yeah, so then you can sort of crack back on with where you are at and where your progress is going, depending on where you're in your season. So yeah, it's just important to listen to your body more than anything else, and focus on that recovery hugely. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else majorly to add. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's delightful.
And obviously, if you guys do have any other questions from what we've spoken about on the pod, do let us know, me or SHAK. I will obviously tag him in everything, so you can find him as well. But yeah, and thank you for joining. And we shall see you on the next pod. A big thank you for joining me on my channel and tuning in. Find me on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon and YouTube, A Diary to Empower. Follow me on Instagram, m_power.fitness, and TikTok, m.ibert. See you on the next episode.